Hello, everyone, and welcome in today. I am so excited, re-energized, refocused, a couple difficult days, and I'm fighting back. So why I decided to do this video today, in my infancy of a collector, I started with Native American silver and turquoise jewelry. And I had such an affection for turquoise, and I always loved silver. And this ring is where I actually started my collecting years and years and years ago. So if you want to see this in a previous video, please go back to my very first video on YouTube, which is now almost 10 months ago. Pretty exciting when you think about it. Or it's almost 11 months ago at the airing of this video. So I would like to thank all of you for coming in. Please stay with me today because this will be very fast paced, and I please ask you to hit the subscribe button. Please help me out. Right across from my name, right underneath this video, right across from Jason Adams, you'll see a little subscribed area. Please hit that. And all it does is subscribe you to my channel, and it's free, it won't cost anything, and it helps me out immeasurably. So I thank you so much for helping me out to continue my YouTube journey. The books that I wanted to show you briefly before we get into the cuff bracelets, this video was only on the cuff bracelets in my collection. I believe I have 67 picked out, and I have well over 300 or so in my collection, maybe 320. I focused on very early Native American jewelry and cuffs and rings and squash blossoms, and the rings and the squash blossoms will come in future videos. If you want to see those, a specific video on Native American rings and a specific video on Native American squash blossoms, please just leave that in the comments below and encourage me to do so, and I will do that. These books were the 4 that I picked out of my library. I believe I have 11 books just on turquoise. These were the ones that were the most helpful to me in my infancy of collecting. This is Turquoise Unearthed, an illustrated guide, and let's see if we can get the author in. There you go. That is, it looks as though it says Joe Dan Lowry and Joe P. Lowry. Okay, so you have that. And then when you open this up, this is just a great guide to the different matrix and the different mines like Kingman, King Manasseh, Cerrillos, you name it, it's in here. And what it's a great library of is what to look for in these certain turquoise colors, some treatments, what they refer to as buying guides. The one that I have marked is Lander Blue. Lander Blue is the rarest turquoise on Earth, according to most gemologists and turquoise collectors. As you see the matrix in Lander Blue, it's a very unusual, almost spiderweb matrix, allowing these bright polka dots of blue to come through. Be careful. Lander Blue was a very small mine. It was considered, quote, a hat mine. I've covered this before. Lander Blue is the turquoise that is one of the most sought after in Native American jewelry. There is not much of it in the world, and if you see Lander Blue online for, let's say you see a 2-carat Lander Blue cabochon and they're offering it for $200, that in fact is not going to be real. Lander Blue is very expensive. Years ago, I saw a 2.1 carat Lander Blue cabochon sell for $2,200. It was an exceptional stone. So a very small stone such as this can sell for thousands. So please be careful with Lander Blue turquoise, and just do your own homework and make sure that you know exactly what you're buying. But this is a wonderful guide to the different mines. On a different kind of reference book, Turquoise Jewelry. This one is a soft cover, and it's by Nancy Schiffer of Schiffer Publishing. And what I loved about this is it gave a very easy guide to the forms of different things for an early cuff bracelet, a squash blossom necklace. Unfortunately, I can't get the whole book in this video because I am inside the light box, but you get the gist of what this is about, the forms, the ages, the way that things are handled when it comes to the tooling or stamping on the silver work. I think my fascination early was based on the silver work. As a silversmith and back then an inspired artist in my youth, I really looked at the forms of these things and how they were created. Which then led me to things like this that I personally made. So I was inspired greatly by the Native American jewelry. And I did ask one of my Native American friends, and I say Native American because she is, she has a strong lineage to the Cherokee tribe, and they consider their family Native American Indians. And they actually say Native American Indians. So when people say you can't say Indian anymore, it's not a derogatory term if the person who is of the tribe is calling themselves Native American Indians. Let's be clear on that as well. Some people may take offense to the term Indian. I do not, because in these old books where I learned, like Arizona Highways, which is a very respected publication, it says Indian Jewelry Digest from Arizona. It says it right on here. When we get into the other books I show you, the titles of the books are Indian, you know? So that's the way, you know, I never want to be disrespectful, but I wanted to clear that up, you know, because there's some unfortunate stickiness with that, and I don't like it, you know, and I don't want that on my channel. This is the famous Charles Loloma or Loloma, so you can say Loloma or Loloma. He was a Hopi artist who was extremely famous, and what these books did is they broke down the artists and the craftspeople and the designs of Zuni and Navajo, Hopi, silver overlay pieces, concho belts, and just the application of forms and the way that things were created. When I look at these pictures, like down here, it says that this, well, let's see if I can get this into the camera. I'm going to struggle over here. There's this ring right here. And this, well, it's not going to work. I'm going to have to back this out of here. And I'm not starting this video over. I'm not doing it. And you know I don't edit. See that ring there? Well, that's that is listed by, let's see here. It says below, Hopi Master Charles Loloma, the bracelet and the ring. It shows the extraordinary application of lone mountain spider web turquoise mounted in gold. So when you look at that ring, then you look at one of the rings that I used to wear all the time. Where did my ring go? I should pause this video already. So look, you know, when people say, oh, do you have book pieces? I say, I most certainly do. You know, when you have book items, you know, do you wear these pieces? Yes, I do. You know, so just remember, you can find these things in these books and in these publications. So that's why it's so important to have these. You can find those online very easily. This is another book that I use specifically on turquoise. Turquoise, the gem of the centuries. This is by Oscar Branson. Oscar Branson, Branson. I don't get any sort of royalties from the books that I recommend. This one was one of my favorites. Why? Is it talks about turquoise specifically as a material, and it also shows it in its application in different forms. The different tribes, the way they constructed things, so you're going to become very familiar on certain forms and what they were called. It also breaks down the different mines. Fox mine, also known as the Cortez mine. Why I don't want to talk about specific mines today is when you look through these publications, you'll get a greater understanding to the turquoise that you're seeing. Why I'm not going to cover my video today as I trip over my words is because oxidation from old pieces changes the color of turquoise over time. That's the first thing we need to realize. The second thing we need to realize is as I show you pieces, the color isn't going to be the same as in real life because your monitor, if you're watching on a computer, or if you're watching on your cell phone, this is a facsimile of real life. You know, and why I won't talk about certain mines today is I don't want to fight with anyone and say, I think this one is Cerrillos. I think this one is Kingman. I think this one is Sleeping Beauty, because people have this great tendency to want to correct everybody. That's not what this video is about today, but what you'll do is you'll take the deep dive yourself. You'll get into these specific mines and the tribes that produce these things. Royce based in turquoise, right? And then, of course, there's other names for these mines. Look, royal blue, Bunker Hill. You will call a turquoise one thing, and then another expert might call it something else. Look at this, McGinnis mine. So you might have an expert identify this as McGinnis. And then someone might say, no, that's gem mine. Well, it's the same mine. It's the same mine, but it's a different name. Look at this one, Caraco Lake Mine, formerly known as Stone Cabin Mine. So when people start to fight and disagree, there is a level of forgiveness amongst these different turquoise. Some are very obvious. Red Mountain, as soon as you see it, you never forget it. It's the same thing. Where is King Manasseh mine? Let's see here. Let's go back to the map. But number 8, you won't forget it, you know? You won't forget that. I gotta find King Manasseh mine. Let's see here. But you'll see there's, let's see, Ajax mine. That's one you won't forget. That looks like nothing else. It's this minty kind of green. And then as it ages and oxidizes, look how it turns a darker green with almost a brown or a golden brown matrix, you know? So Villa Grove mine looks like Kingman, you know, but it's not. There's different matrix that talks about the different mines. There's Cerrillos, and then let's see here. Here's King Manasseh. Once you see King Manasseh mine, there's no denying it leans very green. It has a brown matrix. I wish I could fit this whole thing in here, but that's King Manasseh mine. More accurately, here we go, more accurately, the King Turquoise mine. So, all right, enough about that. So dive into this. Oh, and then in the center of the book, which is really helpful. Oh, and you caught a glimpse of my cuff bracelet today. Magnificent, huh? Well, look at this. This breaks down the location of the mines. This breaks down the mines of the Southwest. It shows the different colors and where they came from. Look how close together these mines were. In one single state, look how many different kinds of turquoise. And they all look very similar, but they're all from different mines. I will tell you that most of the time, the mine does not dictate the value. Remember that. Let that sink in. As I talked about earlier, the title of this book says it all. It says Indian, Ceremonial, and Trade Silver. So they used the word Indian. Okay, so should they be forgiven? I suppose so. This is from the National Museums of Canada. So this is all based out of very early things. You know, the fur trade, gorgets. There are some of the early hallmarks for some of the oldest silver. If you find these belong in a museum. These belong in a museum these days, and you can still find these pieces. And of course, since they're not marked for their silver content, look at the way it shows how these native people wore their silver. Look at this. Look at this. Can you imagine? Even if you'd find one of these pieces these days, it's thousands of dollars. Can you imagine going into an estate sale or a thrift store and finding a bag full of these when they wouldn't know that they were silver because they're not marked with their silver content? You could be into $20,000 or $30,000 just in silver pieces alone. That's why I take the deep dive sometimes. Rocker engraving, certain things that we don't see on an everyday basis. These are the things that people dream of. These are the things that museums are seeking because they are still out amongst us. Very early armbands, rocker engraving, hand engraved, German silver, coin silver, not sterling silver. They wouldn't hold up under a sterling test, and everybody, slow down. Don't scratch everything. Don't test everything with a stone and expect to get the right result. Someone may scratch this or put it on a stone, and this may test as nickel silver. This is worth thousands and thousands and thousands of dollars. You know, and a matched pair, I do have a pair of rocker engraved cuff bracelets that I'll be bringing on. I also have an early Plains Indian silver bracelet that I bought from the First Peoples Museum when it closed. They deaccessioned the entire collection of the First Peoples Museum, and I was lucky enough to participate in a sale in Cincinnati, Ohio. It was a long time ago, maybe 2005 or 2006, and I was able to buy a beautiful Plains Indian cuff bracelet, which I'll bring on. But look at these forms and the application of these. I do have a pair of these that were worn as earrings, but originally that's the way they were applied to this headscarf. 1780. 1780. Are you kidding me? I just get lost in these things, and here I am not progressing forward to talk about my silver bracelets. So this one, Indian Silversmithing by Ben Hunt. Please pick this up. Indian silversmithing. So, or we should say First Indigenous People, or Indigenous People of America now. This shows the techniques, the applications of specific ages of squash blossoms, specific ages of sand casting, of stamping, of the forms of a cuff bracelet, belt buckles, you name it, bogards. You know, the chapter on bogards would be extremely helpful. This shows the construction. This shows the tooling. This shows the process of making. This is a very raw guide, and this speaks my language. As an artist, this communicates to me on a level that it may not communicate with most people, but this showed me what I needed to know early on of the application of silversmithing, and then the end result of these amazing and very early turquoise rings. Those would be 1900 through 1930. We need to see these things. So when you see that today at the thrift store, at an antique mall, you know, when you see this application of cluster and you take a look at the tribes that they attributed these to, sometimes it's difficult to tell a Navajo cluster from a Zuni cluster. These books, very early publications, assist us with that information. There's been very little that has changed in the history of jewelry from these publications. There are some discrepancies, so I'll fair warn you there. There are some things that have come up that now we know differently. But check that book out, because that's a wonderful guide to, again, a silversmith, you know? This one's amazing. Indian silver jewelry of the Southwest, 1868 to 1930. This has got to be one of my favorite books on Native American silver jewelry, and when you go through this one, you'll see why. The photographs, the information, the didactics, the layout, the forms, the turquoise, discussing earlier from later, showing the history of cuff bracelets and why they're important. Why I knew, let me go to this really quick, and I am going to slow down for a minute here. I didn't mark the page. You'll have to excuse me for just one moment. And again, should I pause the video? Probably. Why am I screaming? Because I'm excited. Remember the simplistic cuff bracelets. If these were at a thrift store, they'd be $8, $10. They're worth several hundred, if not $1,000 for certain ones now. The more simple, the better. These are pre-1903. So very much so, pre-Caucasian trade. Pre-trade. They were made for the tribes, like these rings. You'd see one of these in a jewelry bag or a jewelry jar. You could buy that at Goodwill. They wouldn't know. They'd throw it in the jar and they'd not know. $300, $450, $1,200 to $1,500. That's just a roundabout. I'm going with what I know. And these were, it says between 1893 and 1920. Are you kidding me? Let's see. I don't know where I'm missing that one that has the ones, the turquoise on the finials. Let me take a quick peek at this. And I do appreciate your patience with me when I I come up with an idea. I could show you these as well, because you're going to see some of these cuffs in my collection in just a minute. And why I show those is because they're 1910, and these down here are around 1915. And those are circa dating, and why they were doing the circa dating is, they weren't there when these things were produced, but when they were doing things with like a chisel and turning a chisel into a stamp, that cold chisel stamping on some of these pieces really indicated the age. Let's see here. Let me go to, well, I mean, this shows some of the earliest of the cuff bracelets. And why it's important is when you find some of these, they're worth thousands of dollars now. They're not just worth hundreds, they're worth thousands. Why this book was helpful to me, when you find the stones that are drilled, I'll show you one of those in just a little bit, and I'll show you why. Those were originally earrings. Those were where the holes were, those were originally earrings. And this book talks about that. It goes into great depth of all of that. Does anyone want to see my concho belts? If you want to see my concho belts, put that in the comments and I'll bring on some of my concho belts from my collection. I focus on this one. There is, let's see here, 6 Zuni cluster bracelets and 2 turquoise row bracelets. And the row of bracelets at the bottom right is possibly Navajo. So they're saying that this one's possibly Navajo. Well, I wouldn't disagree, but I also see 2 that make me think that they're Navajo. And these are circa 1930. Look out for those, you know. Let's see, let me go to where I still can't find it. I'm not going to find it. What a sloppy video. You can get these books and go through them on your own. I can't find that cuff, but just remember when I mention the cuff bracelet, and let's see if it's here. I thought I was here we go. Okay, I need to just stop screaming. Okay, why I go to this is where some of the earliest cuffs were. And when we look at this form, you'll see that there's 3 turquoise set on the top here, and then there's 2 on the finials. All right, those are some of the earliest, and they date between 1895. Let me check and make sure yeah, it says right on here. Thank gosh I'm right. 1895 to 1900. Okay, on these cuff bracelets. And why I show this is because it's important. I'm glad I'm taking the time today to show this. It says right here, and then when you look at one of my earliest bracelets that I've said is blacksmith forged, you'll see those finials on the back. Look at the age of this. That someone took a cold chisel and removed that silver and almost blacksmithed this rather than silversmithing. Very early technique to where they took the chisel and they hammered so hard that they cut that metal away from the center of this. And let's not think about the turquoise yet, but look at how they curled these like blacksmith forged. Sterling silver on this one, I guess you could say coin silver. Look at the age of these turquoise stones, out of round, not highly polished, and look at the bezels, completely hand constructed. Very, very crude construction. Look at the bezel on this one. That stone at some point was drilled out to be worn on something else. Look, it's matte finished, it's not high polished. The reason why it was not high polished, they couldn't do it. And also not only that, but look at the way the bezel has worn away. Truth and honesty and wear on this one, and where they worked the silver, you can see how that's work hardened on the inside. So yeah, a finial or a terminal bracelet, very difficult to find. Nowadays, I'm guessing pre-auction estimate 2,000 to 3,000, and it's probably more than that now. You know, look at the honesty on the surface. The honesty of wear. When you look at this book, this is where it helps. When you find a turquoise cuff that looks like that's only, let's say, $80, $100, $200, it's time to buy it as long as it's not a fake, you know, as long as they intentionally didn't fake it. But why this book helped, and there's another one somewhere here that mentions this cold form. So get that book, and then we'll go to one final book, and we'll get into this parade of bracelets, and we'll look at the forms. Southwestern silver jewelry. This is amazing. This is by Paula Baxter. I guess we're going to talk about books today and get this all out of the way because you've all asked, can you please share the books with me? This is an exceptional book. Discusses, again, the silver, the stones, the forms, the age, the importance. The only thing that doesn't happen in these books are current values. You're going to have to go online and figure that out yourself. Here's Dragon's Breath glass set in sterling silver. We've always thought that those are Navajo, and it says right on here, probably Navajo. It says right there, probably. We still agree to this day. And then down here, I wish I can't get it in. This is petrified wood right underneath here. The way that this book is constructed, just remember, this is very important. And again, Southwest silver jewelry, and it's by Paula Baxter. on to the real part of this. I showed quite a few of these cuff bracelets in my other video, and I'll put that in my description. Look at the size of some of these, and I guess I wanted to show like a good, better, and a best, but these are all kind of in the quote better to best range. So I can't really break down these early ones for you, but study that stone. Look at those metallic inclusions. Look at that for purest form. Totally artist signed, not sure exactly who we have here. Haven't looked at these cuffs for a very long time. And in my last video, I did the same thing. It's kind of a parade of cuffs so you can see the importance of form. You can see how thick the sterling is. You can see how robust these pieces are. When you look at modern reproductions, they don't have this sense of craft. They don't have the sensitivity of hand. They don't have this elegance of a tapering form from wide down to narrow with these exceptional turquoise stones. Oh, that's part of a Crown Royal bag that got stuck on there. What do you know? So I store these in Crown Royal bags because it's good to let them breathe. It's good to keep them safe and dust free, and that way they don't hit each other. We do have an artist mark here. I remember looking this one up and was a very important artist. These raw silver kind of pieces and parts with a singular raindrop. This artist knew exactly what they were going for. Incredible, incredible value. This one's probably in the vicinity of around $2,000 to maybe $2,500. This one's probably $1,200 to $1,500. And again, if I look these artists up, the prices are probably going to change quite a bit. But that gives you a baseline for those. Look for quality. I put these two together because I wanted to talk about the different colors and the different variations of the turquoise mines. Someone had once said these stones came out of the same mine. They did not. They absolutely did not. And what I loved about it is the design of the silver made very much so sense with the stones. The way the stones are cut, the shape, the form. The artist comes out in me when I look at these things. And there was a recent by memory, there was a recent comment on one of my videos that said, I see the good and the flaws and appreciate more than the eyes see. The person also went on to say something about that I brought people together with a warm heart, honesty, and laughter. And I hope that that's true. I hope that you walk away with that today, because I would love for that to be truthful. This is Phil... let's see here. I forget this one. Phil T, I believe. I did look this one up. I think this is late 70s. But look at the stamp work on that. And these multiple bands. Absolutely exquisite stones on this one, and I love the color of the matrix. So we'll talk more specifically about those in the future. The thing that I wasn't so fond of was the term of snake eye turquoise. If we have to go with it, I guess we will. So this would be considered snake eye turquoise because they're very small cabs. And look at how high dome this is. This one's old. I would say late 50s. About late 50s, possibly early 60s, but I would say more late 50s. Look at the variance of the color of that turquoise. And why I show this is to show that turquoise will oxidize and change color over time. So there's that one. Let's get into this as a beautiful cuff. And I had shown this before, but everybody wanted a close-up. So there you go, with this very dramatic rope twist band. And look how thick and big this is. This is very heavy, very substantial. The turquoise is amazing. It may not be American. That's all I'll say on this one. That may not be American turquoise. Love the granulation of these giant raindrops in between that almost cobblestone of turquoise. But I've loved this cuff for a very long time, and I like how they finished this edge. Look for that detail. Look for that, because that's important. An artist thought about that end cap and considered that. And as a silversmith, it speaks to me. This one I thought was by Odeki. We're still trying to do some research on the mine on this, because I've confused now two turquoise experts, and everybody's going to weigh in on this, and everybody's going to fight with each other about it. But there's no fighting in jewelry. This is a hand-sawn bezel. And why I bought this was back in the day when I was very, very young. It is fully signed right there, and we do think that it's a decky. And this is extremely substantial sterling silver with these applied leaves and scrolled tendrils, rope twist under. But look, that's what got me, is that hand-sawn bezel. See the irregularity in those kind of scallops? Isn't that fantastic to know that an artist sat down and labored over this, and this is very large. Let me get my measuring tape out so you can understand the size of some of these things. Over 3 inches. Over 3 inches across. And the way that this is constructed, can you imagine what that would cost to make these days, that silver being that heavy and that thick of gauge? As a silversmith, I revere these as sacred objects that I absolutely love. This one, we're going to take a little bit of a deep dive. And the only reason why I mention this is because people do throw around the term white turquoise or white buffalo or buffalo turquoise. That, there's so many different terms for it. Let's be very transparent and very clear. This is considered white buffalo turquoise. Now, I'm just going to give you some simple facts that I know for truth. I believe that it was found in 1992 or 1993. Now, supposedly, someone is now saying that they found it before then in the late 1980s. Not going to go there. I'm just going to say what's proven as of today. And most of this, let's get this clear, most of this was found in Nevada in what was considered the Dry Creek Mine. Okay, I learned all this from my friend Dan, who sold me this piece by, let's see here, it's P and it's Sanchez, and it is sterling silver. It's signed on him. When he went to the reservation, and he wanted to buy the best that he could, Dan was very close with the native tribes, and he was able to acquire this, I believe in 1995. He sold it to me in 2002. White buffalo or white buffalo turquoise is not technically turquoise. We've heard that before, but we haven't heard why. So exactly why, and here comes my lecture series, is it's simply because it lacks the presence of metals in the, I think, the iron, copper, and zinc family. So it misses those metallic elements. However, get this, it actually forms, and its mineralization process is the same as turquoise. So that's why it's termed white buffalo turquoise. Now that we cleared that up, we can all proceed forward with confidence, I do believe. So this cuff, I think when I bought it, it cost me $700, and now out west, if I went out there, this wouldn't be for sale, according to what I know and what I was told by someone who now lives in Arizona. So I would just say that I don't ever really want to sell, but look at the matrix of those stones, and that is a natural color. And yes, white turquoise is not technically white. It really isn't. And when you see it white, alarm bells should go off. Immediately should go off. If it looks white, you might want to look at the seller, you might want to question it, and you might want to look into the howlite stones and see if you're actually buying a howlite that has been falsely sold as white buffalo or white turquoise. So I would say a cuff on this, if you could find it, it would be in the vicinity of probably 2000 and up. Is all I can say. And what an amazing, amazing thing. And if you wanted to be, kind of revered, you would wear something like this out west, because they would know that you understood Native American jewelry and the importance of some of the turquoise and some of the sister stones to turquoise. So now onto this side, we already showed the terminal cuff, which is amazing. This is one of my earlier ones. This is a bow guard. And I don't think I've ever shown this before, and if I did, please forgive me. But this is an old one, and the leather's probably replaced, but look how it's constructed with these stays on the back, and then these leather pieces get put in from behind. This one is circa 1925 to around 1930, and just an absolutely gorgeous, gorgeous piece, and I do wear this. So I do keep the leather pliable because I do wear it. And from wearing it, it stays very soft and very supple, and I really love this bracelet. I always have loved this. Very powerful in its form and in its design, and again, I think it's 4.5 inches across. So an extraordinary piece. kind of a good, better, and a best, even though I wasn't going to do that today in this video because I didn't want to compete amongst my collection. But we have, let's do this. We have a good version. So this is petrified wood. Of course, agate, I suppose you can get away with if you really wanted to, but petrified wood. And the way this is constructed, probably reminiscent of, let's see, the inside construction. That is kind of cold chiseled. So I would say right around 1920. It might be a little bit earlier than 1920 on this one. Yeah, it could be. The stamps are very simple. These kind of like melon seed or style. I do have a book on the stampings and what they mean because each stamp does have a story, does have a design sense behind it, if that makes sense. I'm struggling for a few words today. I think it's just because maybe I am kind of getting a little tired. But look at this one. So this one's a little bit newer towards us, and you don't see that kind of cold chiseling. See how this is kind of rough in between. So this one's older, this one's slightly newer. See that like cold chisel where they went in and they kind of banged that metal apart rather than saw it apart? They sawed this apart and filed it down. So see the early as opposed to newer. So this is probably 20 years newer, I would guess. So maybe this is circa late 30s. Petrified wood again, beautiful color. So here's the, I guess this would be a tie because of age and stone. So we can call these both good. And this one might be, this one might be slightly better now that I'm looking at the construction because they go for age on these. You know, they don't go for stone sometimes. So I'll go with good, better, and then I'll go with best. The reason why is this is very old, and this is Navajo, and very well constructed, very early construction, very thick metal, rope twist, great oxidation. The stamping on those raindrops, amazing. Rope twist, serrated bezel, but the purple lavender in a petrified wood, very difficult to find. And look at the size of this. Bigger is not always better, but it is when you get into a stone that looks like that. So that I'm going to sell. And these two have been with me for so long. I'll keep these two, but that's definitely a sell. So I'll probably list that one on eBay. But I've been so busy with eBay lately. So there's your petrified wood. And those all three are Navajo. So let me set that one out of the way. Let me put these two back where they belong. Let's go into some of the more plain and some of the more, I guess you would maybe walk by these. Maybe you wouldn't stop and take a look. Because they are plain and they don't have fancy stones or they're not oversized. I have shown a couple of these, but not very many. I start with this one. Classic Navajo design. Do you want to call it Fred Harvey? I'd probably disagree. It's Fred Harvey era. It is more tourist trade because anytime you get into these more figural birds that look exactly like this, that's much more for the trade. The engraving in between is unusual. It normally doesn't have that. And the gradation of these silver domes is very unusual. It was looking at an earlier form of bracelet, but you can see this is much more commercial. Not cold chiseled, not knocked apart with a chisel and a hammer to make that opening, to really work the metal, much like blacksmithing, was. And this form, I would say on that one, you could still get this for around $265 to $285. If this were earlier, it'd be, $1,200 to $1,500. So watch the age on such cuffs is all I'm going to tell you, because through my collection, I've sold some really important Native American cuff bracelets, and most of them I sent away to auctions. This one is older. The age on this would be very difficult to tell, but this double rope twist in the center, and then these two bands on the outside, completely fabricated, completely soldered together, labor intensive. Beautiful, old, maybe 20s on this one, 1920s-ish. I would say value on that one around $225 to $275. Hopefully that helps you out. You can look at sold, online, but I never do that. I just don't. I go with my intuition. This one is likely Hopi. Let's see if we've got a mark inside. We don't. This one's likely Hopi. 2 parts of silver and that silver overlay. So a sheet of silver pierced out and then soldered down down to another sheet of silver. So that is not cast, that's fabricated. And this artist loves seeing fabricated silver like this. Very directional, very bold, very simple, everyday wear, and very classy. That one has been a favorite of mine for a long time, and I stacked this with other bracelets. I'd say on this one, 265 to 300-ish, and I know that I could get it. And again, I kind of don't want to sell it. And then there's this Hopi one that's a little bit fancier and also has this accented stamp work on the outside to fill in that outside edge. Really beautifully hammered, really beautifully raised to give like a slight dome to it. And I show these to show you forms. On that one, 4.25 to 4.95. For value, but very heavy in silver, very wearable. And again, you can stack that with other bracelets. This one, I showed this in another video, and I had watched a video a couple weeks ago, and they were talking about the whirling logs, which is, the whirling logs were a peace sign of the Native American culture, and they had nothing to do with Nazi Germany. And they were a good luck symbol that later was turned into something bad. I still wear them. There are people who are terrified to wear them, and I said, you can't do that. You have to take that power back, and you have to show people that that symbol was from many cultures. That symbol was from 3 or 4 different cultures, and all positive, until later people took it over and turned it negative. Let's take it back, and let's turn it back into what it once was, which was a symbol of peace and good luck. So I always wear mine, but I educate people on it, because if we don't, history repeats itself. We know that. We've seen it. So this stamp work here, again, very kind of commercial, but this cuff, beautiful concho style. Everybody loves this, and I can see why. So directional, so beautiful. Late 20s, early 30s, probably more into the 30s on this one, but I love that raised dome. Absolutely exquisite. I love it. I love it. I love it. On to a value on that one, by the way, probably in the vicinity of probably like 400 to 4.25. There's this one that was similar, but this one's slightly older. I bought this for $5 because they thought it was silver plated because it had no sterling hallmark, and it's in fact sterling silver. What I loved about this was it was a mixture of shall you say, tribally used and also commercial at the same time. And this was the transition period of trade. And I loved this faux rope twist border, and then that really deeply stamped concho. Some handwork, most is machine stamped in these larger pieces, and then the hand tooling or the hand stamping on the outside. I love the oxidation of this cuff bracelet. If it was highly polished, it wouldn't have the allure, it wouldn't have the magic, it wouldn't have the power. And I was lucky that it was so tarnished because they sold it as costume. I'd say on this one, from my almost nothing investment, I would say on this one probably in the vicinity of $450 to $575. And that's just going off of what I know that has actually been happening. I forgot to talk about these two. Well, let me scoot these out of the way before I get in too much trouble. And this is just a classic, very beautiful, almost faux rocker engraving on this surface. This is very old. So this one could date, let me take a look at the inside. This one could date, yeah, it could be as early as the 20s. It's not before that. We do have some scratch marks. Could be that it went through some sort of pawn at some point. And the thickness of this and the way this is tooled and worn down, you can see that natural wear across the surface. Always look for that. This has been on someone's wrist for a long time. Navajo in form, and I would say value on this one, I think I could get like $295. And maybe a little bit more, but probably $295. And then let's take a look at these. These are Northwest Coast, and I always have problems deciding what tribe these are. Can you go, I think it's pronounced Tlingit. Some people say Lingit, but I think it's Tlingit. Tlingit tribe. And then the Haida, Haida. And then there's 2 more, and I can't pronounce them. I always tried to pronounce them, but they're very complex. complex. And, phonetically with syllables, it's tough for my English-speaking tongue to tongue twist and to do it, and I don't want to do it. This one is old. It's sterling, and this is brass over sterling. What's interesting about this is it does have some seams, so they were struggling to get a sheet of silver large enough to construct this. And this front view, I believe that's a whale. I think this is the front of a whale. I think that's what they were going for. Some people will say it's a badger, and it might be. It might be a beaver. Nope, I take it back. It is a beaver. Look at the teeth. I was incorrect. I misspoke. However, there's a whale on... Wait, not this one. Hold on. The whale is on... Oh, I know where it's at. It's across the room. So this is the beaver. This is the crane or the crow. Or the raven. I think this might be the raven. I think this is more technically the raven. I'm going to have to find the whale because it is magical. I don't know where I put it. Now I'm a little freaked out. I want to pause the video and go find it. The whale is a front view, and then the tail goes down the one side of the bracelet. These are very sacred. These are hand engraved. This one I bought for $3. I think this one technically would probably go. I think this one was signed. Yeah, this one is artist signed. I didn't look this artist up. I'm gonna guess. I'm gonna take a fly on this one. It would start at $800 and probably go up to $1,500, maybe even more at auction. These are very revered and very difficult to find. Silver lined and brass. If you find that in a jewelry jar, you're in the driver's seat. That's a sacred thing and has such an energy on it. I love that bracelet. This one is a bangle. This one's lower grade silver, probably 800 silver on this one, and very simplistic in its approach. I think this one might be signed as well. I'll do a video on the Northwest Coast Indian jewelry I have in my collection, and I do have other artifacts. And like I said, if you guys want to see my video on rings, put it down below on Native American. If you want to see my Native American squash blossoms, hit me up and tell me. So let's go. Let's go. Let's do some squash blossoms, Mr. Adams. Not a problem. But you can see the honest wear across the surface as well. Not really made for the tourist trade on either one of these. But really fantastic engraving. I love those. So still native and beautiful, and I love them. Let's talk about some red coral, because I had a piece that kind of bridged between turquoise and red coral. Really have always loved this. There was something about the sensitivity of the design and the stones and the way they're laid out. That kind of modernist form, but still looking at the tradition of Native American silver. Very heavy, very substantial cuff. And a favorite, I did leave out probably a good, probably over half the cuffs that I have. I probably left them out of the video. Both of these are red coral. I chose them for different reasons. I love the foliate airiness of this, and then I had to have one that was more compact. I had to have one that was, I guess I should say, a true cluster bracelet, but I love the way those red coral stones are so carefully bezel set with those raindrops, rope twist, very substantial, very heavy, artisan signed on both. This one's graver signed on the inside. Let's see if we can pick that up. Oh, there we go. See, I can get in there. Unfortunately, I can't read it because I'm too far away from my camera right now. This was about design for me. This was about craft. And when someone says to me, well, who's the artist? I go, I'll figure it out. I bought this based on artistry and design. I've never based my collection on signature. It kind of annoys me when I hear people going, well, that's a this or that's a that. It just drives me crazy, because I say, base your collection on what you love. Base your collection on understanding of art. Base your collection on the way something feels. When I picked this one up, it just felt right to me, and it fit. It fits me. It's very beautiful when it's on, and it's comfortable. I guess my intuition was, I had to go home with this. I had other options that day. I always have other options. And I said to someone the other day, they called me and they said, I have 2 squash blossoms for sale and you're the go-to for squash blossoms. And I said, okay, great. So I looked at both of them. I didn't buy either one of them, And why? They didn't speak to me. They didn't resonate with me. And the one was signed. And he said, well, this is something, running bear, something. And I said, okay. I said, okay, well, he's known. And I found his information online. And oh my God, the lecture series. And I thought, well, that's a way to upsell. I don't do that. I just go, love, love, and really love. You know, that's the way I've done it. But that's the way I started this whole process on YouTube. Just baseline information of what I found beautiful as an artist. Let's get into some of the earlier ones, and we won't have to worry about a signature. You know, and I say to people, they say, well, why don't you worry about a signature? I go, none of these are signed, and they're worth a fortune. That's why, you know, I just do it simple. I do it different than everybody else. And you know what? Different is good. Someone said the other day, well, your channel's different than everybody else's. Isn't that refreshing? So look at this. Look at how amazing. Look at that stone. And you know, someone would say, what mine is that? And I'd say, well, that would say one mine, and this age would say another. So, you know, look at the oxidation. When people say, well, turquoise doesn't change color over time. Oh, yeah, it does. Yeah, it changes color quite dramatically. This one I would date to around the 30s. Still commercially produced on the inside. Stamping looks a little bit, earlier. And I love this more primitive application. But when you see that form, but you see the scallop didn't come in until later. But that kind of pie-shaped form, was an older technique of application. So maybe they had those pieces laying around and they set this stone and then they soldered those on. Maybe they had these laying around in their silver bin and their scrap bin for, 20, 30 years. The Native American people, when they were silversmithing, really were industrious. I've seen some amazing things, like you'll see a seam here and you'll say, oh, is that broken? No, their sheet was too small, so they soldered a piece on to make a cuff. They never really wasted anything. And I'm sure that maybe part of these was part of where they cut out on the inside of these, you got to think about that as well. And this one may not have been cut. This may have been, it may have been opened. So they may have put like a small slice and then pulled this, formed this. So in silver, because that's the way I would have done it. Look at that stone. Absolutely remarkable. And that one, 275, because the stone, this one's older. This one has that, and I should do a good, better, and best. Do I feel like I want to? I don't. Was I going to? I was. Was I going to do a good, better, and best? I sure was. Do I feel like I want to? No. I just want to look at beauty. And are all these around the same time period? Let me make sure. Except for, let's make sure. Oh, I'll set that one out. Haven't seen these in a while. Let's see how this one's constructed. Yeah, this one has some cold chisel going on. So this one's older. We'll set those two aside, even though someone polished the heck out of it. And we'll set that one here. Okay, so we'll look at these. These are all right around the same time period. Maybe this one could be a little bit older. We have to look at construction. Yep, that one's older. See the chisel marks? You can kind of tell by the form. So these 5, which one would I pick out? All of them. They all had something different to offer. This one's more contemporary because you can see that these silver bars aren't worked. These silver bars aren't hammered. And then planished and spread. These are soldered together that are silver bars. That one, look at that turquoise though. Love this one. I would say on that one, probably the same, 265 to 295 because it's so old. It's fabulous. And can they go for more than that? Yeah, this one with the arrow, a little bit more commercial, but this one's an older version, early 20s, except I don't really like how commercial that looks. I would say 20s, maybe 30s. As soon as we get into these more commercialized eagles, I'm just not, I start to lose it because the form is much more tourist trade, like you need to make this look Native, American so that people take it home with them. This one, the green turquoise is amazing, and I love that applied arrow design. Sometimes you'll see like the applied horse design. Sometimes you'll see like an arrowhead design. But it's an application of silver, so there's a second layer. So that's important to see. And then this one, I have loved this one forever because I always thought this one was older than the rest. Let me see why I thought that. Yeah, I do. I still do. I don't know. My gut says that's older than the rest of these. And by how much? Maybe 10 or 15 years, probably. Yeah, I would say, yeah, this one's older, even though it doesn't look it. Someone polished this, but you can see that matte finish of metal and that turquoise stone, the way the bezel's constructed. Not commercially produced. Definitely not commercially produced. But I see a lot of reproductions of this. Oh, now I see why too. See how this is hand hammered to expand this center? So they hand planished this. See how the metal was that thick and they made this go wide because they hammered this down? That's not milled. Someone hammered this so carefully. We don't see that in these other ones because these are more contemporary towards us. There we go. There's another helpful hint. I wish I could give myself a high five. Let's see. High five. All right. I don't know what my problem is. I know I just go nuts, but I gave myself a high five because I know I could feel you all going, Jason, thank you. Thank you for the discovery halfway through your video. And it's not halfway because we're almost done. So there are all those. And that's why I don't polish my silver. Do you see why? I don't polish. Ooh, that'd be a great screenshot for this video, wouldn't it? Ooh, baby. I'm liking that. Okay. Let's set those out of the way. Let's talk about these few. I do feel as though this one is much older than those other ones. Look at that natural stone inclusion in that gorgeous greenish, limey, forest green turquoise. Sugarloaf, cabochon, sugarloaf alert. When do you see that in Native American jewelry? Hardly ever. Don't like how commercial these arrows look, but I like the rest of this design. That one's late 20s. Yes, it is. Absolutely. Sterling, really beautiful, well constructed. And I think I bought this one back in the day for $25. I wouldn't sell this one for less than like $4.75 or $4.95. Look how substantial. Now someone will say, oh, polish that a little bit. You can if it's yours. Absolutely. 100% if you want to. And people said, do a video on polishing. I will. I want to do these discovery videos because this is what my jam is. So yeah, these are tool marks from a cold chisel to get these different layers to separate. So that is older. This form is for sure older. Hand stamped out of a chisel. Yeah. And then an additive process. It's not one great big stamp. So let that be a little tale for yourself. So there's a stamp. Then each one of these is another stamp, probably a tool that was turned into maybe the end of a file that was turned into a tool. And then all these are hand stamped. You can see that's not one great big stamp. See it? See how they change direction? And then up here, that's a whole nother stamp. That's a stamp. Those are the little stamps. Yeah, check it out. So this one could be as early as 1910-ish. The only reason why it looks so new is the turquoise so bright, this application surface. Maybe again, we had an older band system, or we had a Navajo that was producing in the turn of the century who was still making in the late 20s or 30s. So that form could be, this still could be, 20s, 30s. It can be. And there's a little bit of circa dating going on with these. And I always tell people, please circa date, please don't say that you know for sure, because you probably don't, I don't, and I'm the first to admit it. This stone is remarkable for a turquoise. I would expect to see more wear on that, so that may have been repolished. Definitely not replaced, but maybe repolished. And again, when I had a turquoise cuff the one time, I was convinced that it was late 1895. And I'll bring those bracelets on. I'll bring the earlier ones on in a separate video. The true, what you consider old pawn that were not made for the tourist trade, that were made to stay there on the reservations. And why bring that bracelet up that I sold? An expert had seen it and they said, oh, there's no way this is 1895. This is a reproduction of 1895. And I said, no, it's not. I know where it came from. And I was a very young, almost a kid back then. And they said, no, I've had, 35 years of experience. Well, they called me 3 weeks later and they said, we owe you an apology. And I said, why? They said, we sold the bracelet for a substantial amount of money. And we owe you an apology because we were fooled because the stone was actually replaced. So because someone had replaced the turquoise, and why? Guess what? Turquoise breaks. Turquoise cracks. This is a classic example. This has a nasty crack and a nasty chip right through the stone. So that could easily just fall out and you'd have to replace it. Well, so they came up with the explanation that we were incorrect because the stone had been replaced and you were correct. The bracelet was purest, but the stone was replaced, but they still sold it for an absolute fortune. So please be aware of that as well. Turquoise will be replaced. And then if you have a contemporary mine and an old bracelet, let's say you replace this with, a new mine, or a mine that's still in production. And then this mine had long been expired. They might look at this bracelet and say, oh, that's brand new and it's made to look old. It's made to look old and then oxidized. There's a lot that goes into identifying what's old and what's new. I had been stumped years and years and years ago, not much recently. really, because if it looks wrong, I always say it's probably wrong, and don't listen to what a reseller tells you. You can't do that. Well, you can if they know what they're doing. Amazing, amazing color and saturation. And then I really loved these two opposing, almost guitar pick shaped turquoise. Right at 19, this one, 1930. Could be slightly earlier, but 1930, and very unusual because the double snake construction. Very unusual and very attractive. And I loved that kind of opposing scalloped stamping that they went through. I love this cuff. I've always thought that this was beautiful. And I loved how the stamping kind of mimicked that motion of the snake, making further motion, and the way the eyes are treated. And that's just polish down inside of the eyes. I could clean it, but I choose not to. And again, I would never polish this. The polishing this surface removes all of this beautiful halo oxidation that says, hello, I am old and authentic. I've been around for a long time, and it still reads as gorgeous. Still, the higher polish on the snakes because of natural wear. That's just incredible. And you can never, I could fake that finish. I could put liver of sulfur. I could use silver black. I could use my chemicals to alter that surface, but you'll still be able to tell that it's not an original oxidation. A purist collector like myself. These were just amazing. I only bring these on because they're so heavy and they're so beautiful. Most of these are Navajo. Some of them are signed on the inside. Let's take a look here and see. Oh, well, it's not going to happen. Camera's not going to adjust. These are so substantial and so beautiful and so well made. This is by Darin, Darin. I have four or five Darin cuffs, and the reason for that is they stack and they almost look like totem pole. They almost read as they tell a story. This one is slightly older than the other two. These are more contemporary. I think they're late 90s, late 1990s on these two, but look at the thickness of this. And just in silver alone, I think this is like 200 and something grams in this one. This one's like 160 in silver, 160 grams. So just in silver weight alone, they are magnificent. I love the way they're treated on the inside. The stamping on the inside. Well, I was taught as a silversmith to pay attention to the finish of the inside. So I guess I have another good, better, and best, and I think it's pretty obvious when I do this good, better, and best. I don't even need to say it, really. Even though this one's kind of a tie, by the way. These two are like a tie. Shouldn't have given the secret out. But you can see these, and people love these because they're very simple and they stack very well, and they're so well crafted. And to have the turquoise stay in there for all those years, these are old. These are late 40s, early 50s, and you can see that each stone is so carefully bezel set. They're not glued in. These are actually bezel set in there. Sterling silver. And these are so popular, like I said, like people love these, and I can see why. The variants of turquoise, to show that the turquoise isn't stabilized, isn't injected with plastic, and like so many of the new things, it has personality over the years of wear. I simply love these, and I do actually, wear these. And people are like, wow, they're so fragile and so delicate. Yeah, but I love them. I've always loved them. Absolutely exquisite, well done. Those that, they're still like 85 to 100 and something a piece. They haven't come down, and I don't think they will. This one is definitely Navajo. When people saw this, years ago, they said, oh, I think that's Zuni. And I'm like, nope, not even close. It has been over polished so that color that used to be down in here used to be black. Boy, would that be beautiful with that oxidation back. And it's been oxidizing over the years. See, like down in there, but someone probably dipped this unfortunately. And please do not use chemical cleaners on your silver at all. Chemicals get into these stones and will basically eat them. When you see turquoise that looks like this and it's like porous or chalky, or the finish is like matte and you can feel like a grit, that's because someone dipped it in a chemical cleaner and has basically attacked the stones. It's so sad to see because you cannot reverse that. There's no way to do so, so please be careful. Just use, if you have to polish your silver, use a silver polishing cloth. This one, right at 19, oh boy, this one's a little tough, 1920. 1920. Could have been earlier, but not with that stamp work on there. And then this one, You have to love these, but why this one's unusual is it's 5 rows. Normally they're one. The stamp work all the way down, and it's very unusual because the square or almost rectangular turquoise stones in every single one of them is there. And I love the color variants. When you buy new, be careful because it doesn't get this personality. It doesn't get this authentic feel. And the way this feels, that you can feel the past wearer, you can feel the person that loved this, and it comes with an energy. If you don't like that, buy new. If you like that authentic feel and you like the vibe of something and you like that something feels loved, go for it. I recommend you do that. And the in-between silver pallions, or silver raindrops as I love to call them, really beautiful, almost like a cannonball border. Love this. Don't know what else to say about it besides value on this one's now probably in the vicinity of 5 row. Has to be above $800. I would say 8 to 12, maybe even more in a gallery situation, but not easy to find 5 rows. You can find a 3, and I had an 8 row one time a long time ago, and it sold very quickly. I think about all the things that I've sold over the years because people have questioned me, how did you get your collection? And I'm like, well, because I sold the whole time I was collecting. Why bring these on? Some of these can bring substantial amounts of money, and these are the carnated, so that means the carnated cuff bracelets, as now I lose the whole pile of them. Where did one go? See how it's like a triangle? So that's carinated, however you want to pronounce it, carinated. It's just that these have sloped. Like if you were to take a cross section of this, if you were to saw into this, you would see a triangle. So basically flat on the back. And then, so this one's very early. This one could be late 1895. That's a definite on that one. This one's also extremely early. When you see that simplistic filing, but you have to look at the inside. You have to look at the way the ends are finished with these very primitive files, very primitive tools, and that's been worn down over 100 years. You can't synthesize that. You can try. As my hands get more and more black as I rub on these things. This is newer. You can see more commercially produced. Let's see. Let me pick out the old ones. Let's put the old ones over here. And let's put the newer ones on this side. And then we'll do a comparison contrast because you're still here with me. And I'm so glad that you are. I will have to say I regret being on so long. I didn't expect it. But the book thing in the beginning had to happen. I had to cover that. And let's see. These might be... Yeah, these could be earlier. I should have had these sorted. Oh yeah, okay, we'll do that one. Okay, and we'll do that. Okay, got it. So these are the more, quote, contemporary. So these 3. Now you might say that looks older, not with the way that's signed on the inside. But that one, well, maybe I'm wrong. You know what? I could possibly be wrong because that sterling mark could have been put on later. This one actually might be old. I take that back. This one might actually be early, 1900, 1920 on this one. It's quite possible. These, not so much, not the way the inside edges are. And the finish on the ends isn't the same. I would say on these, they might be 30s through the 50s on these two. As visual context, sometimes these can surprise us. These can be anywhere between 1895 and 1935. So there's a wide range on those, but that's because it's very difficult to tell in construction on these, especially when they're not signed anything. So those can be extremely early. And again, age on these, depending on how early, if they're extremely early, they're like $500 a piece, and that's very simple for $500 a piece. If they're newer, they're $125 a piece. These are definitely post 1930. So those are after 1930 on those two. And then we'll look at these. These are always very difficult to tell as well. I set these out because sometimes these can range between 1895 and 1925. And these are early, but you can see by the wear and the soft edges. See how these, if they were in your hand, you could feel that these are soft and they have no bite to them. They have no rough edge. They have no edge whatsoever. It's worn down because that takes 20, 30, 40 years. I've worn the same cuff bracelet on my wrist for about 25 years, and you can see where it's been worn down. It takes a long time for these things to look like this. Those are all Navajo on these, and I would say value is between 500 and maybe 250, 275. So 500 and then down from there. And even though simple, very well revered in this business. And there are a lot of fakes of those as well. So you just have to, on that pile, you have to be experienced and you just have to be immersed in it for a long time, or go to an expert, because someone will say, well, I don't understand. I can't see it in your video. There's a lot of things I can't explain as well. Can't find the right human words, but I know when I see old. And I know when I feel old. You know, you touch it and you just know. There's an instinct there. Someone had mentioned about these raised ridges on the inside. So when you find those books on, quote, Indian silversmithing, not trying to offend anybody, but when you find those books, they will mention this kind of raised ridge on the inside of the carinated or carinated cuff bracelets. And that raised edge is a strong indicator of a very early age. There is no denying that that bracelet's been around a long time. The wear to the stamping, the wear to the top, the form itself, and the way the ends are finished, I agree. That has a lot of age to it. Loosely, I would say on that one could be turn of the century, 1900, 1910 on that one. Value, without being too aggressive, 325 to 395. A new one of this, 100 to 125. So the age does matter on these. This one's definitely older. Has a lot of work, and you can tell that the surface has quite a deal of wear. When you feel that top edge where it gets real pointed, you can see that that's worn down. See, there's almost like a flat surface across that. On the newer ones, well, let me grab a newer one. What I said was newer. Let's see if I have a really new. I don't have a new. I don't have like a brand new one. If you have a brand new one, which I don't have because I can't compare it to that because there's still wear on that top edge of that. Here, yeah, this one's, I guess, but if it comes to a more severe point, see, it comes to a more severe point, I guess I should say, and it feels sharper, like that feels sharp. This doesn't feel sharp, it feels more rounded. My finger doesn't go, you know what I mean? It doesn't like have a stop to it. It kind of goes across the surface. So I hope that helps. I hope that makes sense. I feel like I'm not given enough information. I feel like sometimes this visual history kind of speaks for itself, and then human words elude me as to how to explain about the different surfaces. Inside of this says, hello, I'm definitely old. And this, again, file that had been kind of broken and then put these tool marks into this, and each one hand done. So you can see that they don't really line up. They do line up, but they really don't line up. See, especially there. See how that side's more squatty than the other? See what I'm saying? See? They don't start in the same spot and they don't end in the same spot. There's definitely a variable there. That's hand stamped. If this was machine rolled, it wouldn't look like that. Today's cuffs wouldn't look like that unless they're making it in an older style, which they could be. That one's probably in the vicinity of $495, maybe more. You know, maybe these have gone up a little bit. I don't know. I haven't checked them lately. This one's same thing, $375 to $425. If this was new or newer from the late 80s, 1980s, I would say, you know, that could be like $160, you know, for a carinated cuff or carinated cuff. And I've always loved these because they're so pure. And when you wear them together, it tells a beautiful story. This one's very unusual. You know, someone would say that's not Native American. Oh, you're gravely mistaken. You know, you're gravely mistaken, and it's got a lot of age to it. I have one that was broken all the way through. I would say on this one, it's probably right at the 1900 mark, you know. But when you wear these together, look at how beautiful these look stacked together, and they sound so beautiful. Do you hear how that doesn't sound like tin? Listen. You know, it doesn't sound like tinny. It doesn't sound like light garbage metal. It sounds authentic and rich. But look at that for these. As my hands continue to get dirtier and dirtier from the oxidation. But I loved everything about these. So look for these very simple bracelets because they can bring in substantial amounts of money. That stack, I wouldn't sell that for any less than, for me, to a collector, I wouldn't sell it for any less than $1,500. There's no way. And I probably would go more along the lines of maybe 1,800. Well, yeah, 1,800 to maybe 2,000 for the stack. And if you saw those at an auction, well advertised Native American jewelry auction, they could exceed that very easily. But again, if they were contemporary and newer, they'd only be about, maybe half that. So you just got to be careful on the age of such things. And they're going to continue to go up in value. So remember that. And I'll take a look at just a few more of these bracelets down here as I clear this out. And I thank you all so much for staying with me because I know it's a lot to ask. We'll take a look at a few more. Well, I guess not a few more because there's quite a bit more. This is the cuff that I wear all the time and everyone asks me, can we see that close up? There you go. That's been in so many of my videos because I got stuck on this years ago. Fully artisan signed on the inside. And I just think that that is such the exceptional example of Native American jewelry. I've always loved this cuff and I will always love this cuff. There's something so magnificent about it. It's so gigantic. It's just wide and big and well crafted, solid sterling, and I love it. This one is my showpiece. I've shown this before, but I don't want to have to really bring it on another video. This is 5 inches across. And yeah, it's just like one of the best, fully artist signed, somewhere down in here. I don't remember. There it is. It's fully hallmarked down in there, artisan. And again, oxidized like crazy, but I love it and I wear it and it's magnificent. I love that every stone is so carefully bezel set. So I wanted a showstopper, one of the biggest and the best I could find. And that was the biggest and best that I could find. I also bought that from my friend Dan, who he traveled out west all the time and he had access to a lot of things that a lot of other people didn't have access to. These two, I've always loved these for simplistic and very early. And when people say, oh, I want to see turquoise on everything I buy, I say, no, you kind of don't. These are very advanced for the advanced collector who understands the form of Native American and understands more about design than about like what quote Native American is supposed to quote look like, and this one's very old. This one has this amazing corn design and very powerful. This one, again, I would say value on that Navajo. I would say value on that would be, it's going to be tough, but that's at least 900 to 1200. This one right along the same. People would disagree and say more on this one based on the marking system and also based on the craft. Amazing design. Navajo and remarkable original oxidation. Never thought I'd really bring that one on camera, but that might be more. That might be more in the lines of 1200 to 1800. But again, it's in my collection, so it's difficult sometimes to value these things. And this has always been the one that I thought was the most important of my plain silver cuff bracelets. This is not the one that I bought at the first People's Museum auction. This one came to me as a mistake on eBay. They listed it incorrectly, and I have got to do further research on this because I've always thought this cuff was worth an awful lot of money, and I still think that it is. I won't really make a comment on much right now for age or importance, but I've always thought this would be in the thousands, plural. So we'll bring this back into a future video, and I appreciate you giving me the luxury of not really delving into this one specifically right now. Kind of a surprise that I actually brought it on. I surprised myself just now because that was on my desk like, don't talk about this one yet. But here we are. And then this for an early cluster, and then also this one and also this one, because people have said, can we see your cluster bracelets? And I would say, sure. Most of these that we see are definitely Navajo, and some that we see from that earlier page in that book are Zuni. I would say that these three are Navajo because of the construction and the way the clusters are formed. Also, the way the bezels are treated and the rain droplet borders. So these are very, very old. I would say the oldest is likely this one. And these two are very, very close. So circa dating on some of these, it's very difficult based on construction. There is an old pawn mark on the inside, and that is a truthful pawn mark where they had that in pawn, and then obviously did not go back to claim it. Look at the way the bezels are treated. I never went in here and cleaned any of that out because that's honest wear that had been on someone's wrist for probably 40 or 50 years. Look at the way the turquoise has turned color. When I talk about purist collectors, these are the kind of things that I want people to see so they know the quality that they can get. This cuff bracelet now at auction would probably be in excess of $2,000, so it'd probably be more in the vicinity of like $2,200 to $2,500. Again, people would disagree with that and say, well, I think I can get it for $1,000. If you could, I recommend you buy it because those days are not going to be around much longer. This one, the turquoise in this, very unusual, and you can see the variance of the cabochon. Look how high this one is, never replaced. So you can see how each stone was hand cut. Look how low that one is. That one's a little higher. That one's definitely higher. That's definitely way higher, but you can see that those stones have been in there for a long time. Take a look at that and pay attention. That's old. The way this is also, again, chisel carved. So see where that chisel went in and kind of, they hammered this with that chisel to get in here and open this up. Before they soldered all these bezels on, they formed this cuff by going in with a chisel, hammering that apart, and then spreading those bands. It wasn't an additive process. Those weren't fabricated. That wasn't like 3 bands that were soldered together like the ones that I just showed you earlier. Wish I had one out on my desk that I could show you. Here we go. So as we look, so this is more contemporary as I covered earlier. See how those two, see how this one's formed out of 3 bands? Well, now I'm not going to focus because my hands are full. So this one's formed out of 3 bands of metal, soldered together, added together. This one is hammered out of 1 piece of sterling, 1 piece of silver. So old, 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 new, 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 or newer, you know, more contemporary towards us. Still what, late 50s, 60s, or maybe even 70s, as I covered earlier. See how that's 1 piece? So that construction was very early construction, unless you have a contemporary artist trying to fool people. Not on this one. Not with that stamp work, not with the authentic wear, and not with that variance of bezel and stone. So see that? There's another moment that I wouldn't normally know how to put into words. So I'm glad that happened. Normally that happens during one of my live feeds, you know, which I'm really well known for. This one, in excess of 1,000. I'm not sure exactly where that resides. And then this one, I would say between $1,500 and like $2,000. And this is the additive process with the end cap, so slightly after this one. And I would say on this, based on construction, probably turn of the century-ish, maybe into, you know, you'd say circa 1900, 1910, might be into 1915, but it's definitely before 1930. So I could say pre-1930 and be covered. Or you could say first quarter of the 20th century. You know, a lot of times when you look at the Native American catalogs, they'll say first quarter, second quarter of the 20th century. So 1900 to 1925, 1926 to 1950, and then 1951 to like 1975. So they'll break it up into quarters because quarterly circa dating, you can't really get into trouble, right? So I would say first quarter of the 20th century. And not a single historian would disagree with that. They would say, no, you're absolutely right. And I'm careful with dating. I'm careful with even circa dating most of the time. So oldest, and then these two are kind of remotely tied, if you will. In construction, this one's older, so slightly older than this one. So there you go. There's those 3. Hopefully that makes sense. And then this one I just bring on for design because I felt it to be one of the more unusual designs of Native American. It is sand or tufa cast. We'll get into that because of this graininess on the inside. And we'll get into the specifics of tufa and sand, slightly different. These turquoise stones, magnificent. And again, kind of that corn or unfolding foliate. I usually don't see this form much, and everyone attributes this to Navajo, and I can see why. Stones are magnificent, I would say on that one. Since it's slightly unusual, that's still $1,500 to $2,000 on that one. And then on this one, a little bit of more homework needs to be done. At first, we didn't think this was old, and then now that we're studying this, as I stutter, we now know that it is, we now know that it is earlier. The reason why is we see that this is all hand stamped on the outside because there's irregularity in that design. And then when we look at these, they are chased and reposéed. These are hand tooled, and then they're pushed from the inside. So that's the reposé and then chasing from the front. So reposé, pushing from the back, and then chasing with this full flower, 6-petal flower on the outside. So that turquoise, very early, singular bezel set stone. You know, is that one right at the turn of the last century? We're still working on this one. So I'm not going to make a comment exactly, but we know that this is old, old, old. Absolutely old and genuine. And then just these few, and then we're done. And look at us go. So I brought those two on because they're two of the earliest for the plain silver cuffs. And then I brought these three on, and I was going to do a good, better, and best. And at this point, again, I don't want to compete in my collection, so I'm not going to do it. I'm just going to say these are exceptional because a angular cut green turquoise stone, this beautiful cluster. Look at the color variance of that blue-green into that lime green. I sure hope you're all still here. When these crack like this, I tell people, please don't adjust your cuff bracelets over and over and over. That's why, because silver will get work hardened. I never repair that because you'll alter this whole surface. There's no way to fix that without altering the oxidation on the rest of this cuff bracelet. Sometimes it's okay to use soft solder. I would leave that alone. I would say just leave it alone and, pay attention to not, going in and out with these over and over and over. You just roll them on and roll them off. You don't keep adjusting them. When people fidget with them, it makes me so crazy because I'm like, please don't fidget with adjusting them. Please leave them alone and respect them. This one is, again, hand forged. Look how thick this is. Someone would think this is contemporary. Someone would think this is, 1990s. No. This is like 1900, 1910. Navajo, clearly Navajo. This very stylized arrowhead form, very early stamping, hand stamped all the way down. There's variables in that stamping. The way they finish the ends very early, and you can see that this metal has been stressed, and the reason for that is, see how this was thick? Well, they hammered this down in the center, and they hammered over and over and over to extend this into this form to then hold this stone. So this is hand forged again to create that flat area for that turquoise to sit on. Value, it goes between, on the low end on these, and I'm not going to single anything out. On the low end, it goes $225, and on the high end, it goes $695. To maybe even $795. And I don't want to say this one's this and this one's that. I'm not going to do that right now because I'm getting a little tired. And look at these two. These are very, very early. This one is the one that was almost cracked all the way through. This is Navajo. And when you look at the way the stamping is constructed, this one's newer, this one's older, and you can see the difference. See how these are more commercial stamps, meaning that stamp is one stamp and then stamped, and then these are two other stamps. These are all independent stamps. These are all the ends of a file. These are all, once you see these, see how much more commercial this one is, with the whirling logs and the arrowhead, and you can see how primitive and primal these are. This one's about 1895, and this one's probably 1920, maybe 1915. So there is quite a span in between those years, and you can see this as a genuine, I'll reverse them, genuine and authentic, tribally worn, and then this one for the tourist trade, or worn at the end of, the first phase or the first generation. When we talk about the phases of Native American jewelry, I will get into video on that as well, but this was a little deeper dive than what I normally do, just based on form and age. I somehow always lose my intention. Yeah, that's definitely going to crack all the way through. Thank God they didn't solder that. So I'm glad they left that alone. But yeah, you can see that, authentic, tribal use, and then more commercial, for the trade. So I hope this video has made wonderful sense. I thank you so much for spending over an hour with me. I never meant the video to go this long, but I'm glad I relaxed. I'm glad that, I kind of eased into this. Hopefully I gave you enough of values. I will say that I'm going to drop the link to the previous video that I did these on. It's a long time ago now. I think it's well over 6 months ago. I'll put that in the description if you haven't seen that video. It was on a primary sort on some of these. I'll drop that in the description box. I beg you to stay posted and watch Sunday's video. This coming Sunday is going to be magnificent. I kind of surprised myself with what I chose to talk about, something that I didn't think I would ever cover, and I got the idea for the video yesterday. Being deeply inspired and being deeply motivated, because my channel is different than everybody's, I just felt like, you know what, I'm going to do something different. So I thank you all so much for the love and the affection that you continuously give me. I hope you go forward and have a beautiful day. I thank you all so much, and please hit that subscribe button for me. I would greatly appreciate it. I love you because I do.